From the moment human beings became self-aware, we began to ask questions. Not questions about survival alone, but questions about meaning. Who am I? Why am I here? What is the purpose of this life? And what happens after death? These questions existed long before organized religion and have not disappeared with the rise of science. In fact, as human knowledge has expanded, these questions have only grown deeper and more urgent. Technology has given us comfort, speed, and power, but it has not answered the fundamental questions of existence. The Urantiabook begins precisely here, not to silence these questions, but to honor them. It does not attempt to replace human inquiry. Instead, it invites us to carry these questions further than we ever thought possible. In 1955, in the city of Chicago, a book appeared quietly. There was no public announcement, no advertising campaign, no charismatic leader promoting it. There was not even a named human author. The book was large, over 2,000 pages, and divided into 196 separate papers. This book claimed something extraordinary. It described itself as a revelation to the planet Earth, which it called by another name, Urantia. Such a claim immediately invites skepticism, and the book seems to expect exactly that. It does not demand belief. It does not ask for loyalty. It simply presents its content and leaves the judgment entirely to the reader. Urantia is the name by which our planet is known in the universe described by the book. It is not a poetic metaphor, but a designation, Earth viewed not as the center of existence, but as one inhabited world among many. This single word quietly shifts perspective. Humanity is no longer portrayed as isolated or forgotten, but as part of a vast cosmic family. The story of human life is placed within a much larger framework, one that stretches beyond national borders, religious traditions, and even planetary identity. From the very beginning, the book asks the reader to consider a bold idea. What if human life has a cosmic context we have not yet fully understood? One of the first questions people ask is simple: who wrote this book? The Urantiabook does not name a human author. Instead, each paper is attributed to various orders of non-human personalities, described as administrators, teachers, and counselors within a vast universe organization. This alone challenges the reader. The book does not attempt to establish credibility through familiar authority. Instead, it places the burden of discernment entirely on the content itself. Readers are encouraged to evaluate coherence, depth, and transformative value, not to accept claims blindly. This approach filters out passive belief and invites active thinking from the very first page. The origin story of the Urantiabook begins in 1911. Near Chicago, a woman approached a physician with concern about her husband, who exhibited strange behavior while sleeping. He would rise, speak coherently, and answer questions, yet remember nothing upon waking. The physician was Dr. William Sadler, a respected psychiatrist and a well-known skeptic of spiritualist phenomena. He had spent years debunking claims of mediumship and supernatural communication. He approached this case not as a believer, but as an investigator determined to find a medical explanation. That investigation would continue for decades. The man at the center of this case entered deep sleep states during which complex speech and dialogue occurred. Medical observation revealed no signs of mental illness, hypnosis, or neurological disorder. His physical functions remained normal, and attempts to interrupt the state were unsuccessful. Most striking was the content of the speech. The subject discussed ideas far beyond his education or interests. Upon waking, he showed no awareness of what had transpired. For Dr. Sadler, this presented a mystery that resisted all known psychological categories. Skepticism remained, but explanation failed. During these sessions, the speaking voice identified itself not as a spirit of the dead, nor as a deity, but as a student visitor. These beings claimed to be observers, participants in a larger educational and administrative universe. Whether one accepts this explanation or not, the tone of the communication was notable. There were no demands, no emotional manipulation, no appeals for worship. The dialogue was calm, structured, and intellectually rigorous. The challenge was no longer emotional belief, but rational evaluation. Dr. Sadler and a group of associates began submitting written questions, sealed and locked away. The subject never saw them. Days later, handwritten responses appeared, addressing the questions directly and in detail. Handwriting analysis confirmed that the subject did not write them. Neither did his wife. The process repeated itself over many years. The group expanded. The questions deepened. The answers grew into full essays on cosmology, philosophy, theology, and human destiny. The phenomenon defied conventional explanation. Between 1925 and 1942, the material expanded into what became 196 independent papers. Hundreds of people were involved in reviewing, questioning, and organizing the content. Yet no one claimed authorship or credit. The material demonstrated internal consistency across thousands of pages, covering subjects from atomic structure to spiritual growth. By the time the final papers appeared, especially the extensive account of Jesus' life, the work had become a comprehensive worldview. Publication would come years later, quietly, without promotion. The Urantiabook describes itself as a revelation, not inspiration. Revelation, in this context, does not mean unquestionable authority. It means the presentation of knowledge beyond what humanity could independently assemble at its current stage of understanding. Importantly, the book states that revelation is progressive. No revelation is final. As humanity grows, future revelations may reinterpret or expand upon earlier ones. This humility sets the book apart from rigid doctrinal systems. Truth is portrayed not as static, but as living and unfolding. The Urantiabook carefully distinguishes between fact, meaning, and value. Science explores facts. Philosophy interprets meaning. Religion addresses value. Confusion arises when one domain attempts to replace the others. Rather than opposing science, the book affirms scientific inquiry while acknowledging its limits. It proposes a framework where empirical knowledge, rational thought, and spiritual insight work together without conflict. This integrative approach speaks directly to the modern mind. God, as presented in the Urantiabook, is not distant or impersonal. God is described as a loving Father, infinite in scope yet intimate in relationship. Not merely a cosmic force, but a personality capable of knowing and loving each individual. This portrayal bridges transcendence and closeness. God is both beyond the universe and present within it. The result is a theology that emphasizes relationship over ritual and growth over fear. One of the book's most distinctive teachings is the presence of a divine fragment within the human mind, called the thought adjuster. This presence does not override free will or dictate behavior. Instead, it gently guides, suggesting higher choices and deeper understanding. Spiritual growth is described as a cooperative process between human personality and this inner divine presence. Transformation is not imposed. It is chosen. Death, according to the Urantiabook, is not the end of existence. But neither is it an instant arrival at perfection. Life is portrayed as an educational journey. Death marks a transition to another phase of learning and service. Growth continues. Identity is preserved. Purpose expands. Eternity is not endless rest, but endless opportunity for meaningful participation in the universe. The final section of the Urantiabook presents an extensive narrative of Jesus' life. It emphasizes his humanity as much as his divinity. Miracles are explained, but character is central. Jesus is portrayed as revealing God through his life, not through dogma. His message centers on the fatherhood of God and the brotherhood of humanity. This section invites readers to rediscover Jesus not as a symbol, but as a living example. The Urantiabook does not ask readers to abandon their existing faiths. Instead, it affirms that all religions contain elements of truth, shaped by culture, history, and human experience. Religion is described as personal before it is institutional. True spiritual growth begins with individual experience and expression. The book encourages deeper understanding rather than conversion. Unity, not uniformity, is the goal. There are no mandated rituals, ceremonies, or rules in the Urantiabook. Spiritual life is not defined by outward practice, but by inward transformation. Prayer, meditation, worship, music, and art are expressions, not obligations. Daily life itself becomes the arena for spiritual growth, where choices, relationships, and service reveal one's values. Faith is lived, not performed. The Urantiabook has no charismatic leader, no centralized authority, and no system of control. Readers are free to agree, disagree, or walk away entirely. There is no threat, no promise of exclusive salvation, and no demand for allegiance. This openness distinguishes the book sharply from cultic movements. Freedom of thought is preserved at every step. The Urantiabook does not ask, "Do you believe this?" It asks, "What happens when you live it? Does life gain meaning? Does compassion grow? Does understanding deepen?" Truth, the book suggests, is known by its fruits. Spiritual ideas must prove themselves in lived experience. Judgment belongs not to institutions, but to personal transformation. The Urantiabook does not shout. It does not argue. It simply opens a door. It offers a vision of humanity's place in the universe, a loving God, and a meaningful future. Whether one accepts it fully, partially, or not at all, the invitation remains the same. To think more deeply. To love more broadly. To live more consciously. The choice, as always, is yours.